Today's video is brought to you by NordVPN. Hello and welcome to The Broken Sword. Today's video serves to answer the question of whether or not anyone could have bested Sauron, or perhaps more precisely, was anyone close to being Sauron's equal? Who did Sauron fear, if anyone?
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
One way in which an adaptation suffers is what has to be cut. For example, when we get to see the last alliance of elves and men in the prologue for the Fellowship of the Ring, the entirety of that conflict has been condensed to what looks like a long afternoon. Of course, there are good and proper reasons for this decision, but part of the trauma and villainy of Sauron lies in how difficult he is to defeat. The War of the Last Alliance of Elves and Men spanned 17 years and more than 100,000 lives. That kind of pain is the kind that Sauron wishes to inflict, one that makes anyone who opposes him think twice before they do something about that fact. Sauron in his mind was unmatched. His immortal life and millennia of experience and the fortifications of Barad-dûr made the Dark Lord virtually unassailable. What had he to fear? With his cunning, his holdfasts and hosts of warriors, his fortifications and defences too. There may have been a potential alliance of elves and men out there, in a similar fashion to what happened the last time Sauron came forth in the fullness of his power and made war on Middle-earth. But could it really come close to matching him? The film tried to give us the context of that great war, of which there are numerous individual battles, but in doing so at this speed takes away from the massive effort and full social mobilization that it took to take down one spirit. And barely at that. This is a way of war for Sauron, a tactic where he makes any attempt to meet him with arms so costly that whoever was left to celebrate would celebrate a Pyrrhic victory indeed. Despite this, and with the drawing of all evil to him, Sauron was still desperately searching for the ring, his better half. With that, he thought he could change what he saw as a pattern of intolerable order, that of great battles fought and won, but each time the darkness is dispelled. Present during the music of the Ainur, he witnessed the first of all battles when Melkor interjected his own theme into Eru's music and tried to take it over by force. But at the end of the previous 3 ages, the light has always come up against the darkness, and in the end, darkness always loses. But before we dive deeper into Sauron's fears, let me pause for a moment to let you know about today's sponsor, NordVPN. They've been amazing to support us in creating our Middle-earth content. Imagine this: you are one of the dwarves of Khazad-dûm mining within your great halls. You wake up no less than a Balrog. You run, you hide, and hope to Aule's beard he does not come and find you. You have hidden from him and made him believe that you are in fact somewhere else instead now. This is essentially what Nord can do for you on up to 6 of your devices at the same time. They have servers with the speed of a sprinting dwarf, 24/7 customer service support, and protection anywhere you go, from Moria to Wales to Mordor to the USA. Imagine the situation where you are sitting at home and you go to put on the Fellowship of the Ring to see Frodo and his friends set off on their adventure. But no, it is not available in your country. Well, with the help of NordVPN, that is no longer an issue. Just change your region and boom, like Gandalf breaking the bridge of Khazad-dûm, you can watch to all of your heart's content. So what have you got to lose? Use our exclusive link that will be pinned in the comment section below or as shown on screen to get your risk-free NordVPN deal. This is a limited time offer though, so why leave yourself potentially vulnerable online when we can offer you this safety for a great discount today? So with you now safe with the knowledge of NordVPN, let us discover who Sauron truly feared the most. Of the elves, he still had the right to fear, one of which is Elrond, as they still possessed rings of their own and had come together in the end to make the difference at the climax of the Second Age in the War of the Last Alliance. The victory of the Free People was a loss for Sauron, a loss of his ring, of shape and form. But as always, Sauron would take all the time in the world to brood his dark broodings and question who might be a threat to himself, Sauron the Great. As a leader of one of the armies during the last round of open warfare, Elrond was in a good position to offer permanent resistance to Sauron, and with the experience and great knowledge that Elrond held, this brought him considerable powers too, though they were soft power, that of good counsel, reason and diplomacy. But Sauron might have told him that since the kingdoms of the Eldar were gone, and the Avari and Dark Elves were now of little account. Another potential foe whose wisdom and experience precedes her is the Lady of Light, Galadriel. She was an immensely powerful being in her own right, of the caliber of Feanor, even yet wiser and measured in speech and discerning in action. She had lived during the years of the trees, a time of elvish Eden if you wish, where they were nourished in the light of those trees, Talperion and Lorelin in Valinor. So it seems clear that Sauron was unmatched in might. The question then becomes, what about the Tom Bombadils of Middle-earth? Is there nothing that possessed anything of the might that is Sauron's? It's true, that old saying, say what you will about the devil, but he is a hustler. The same is true of Sauron, that he is of a most refined and realized evil, infinitely patient and unwavering in will and resolve. Sauron never seems to have an off day. In fact here, why not leave me a comment of Sauron versus Bombadil if you would like a full video looking at just this discussion. Could Tom Bombadil at any point take down Sauron? It's definitely a subject that would be a fun one to cover, and if you'd like it, let me know with that comment below. But anyway, and yet, Sauron feared everyone. This is where his will to conquer and control comes from. Could Gandalf destroy Sauron? By means of brute force? The answer really, most likely, is no. It is true that Tolkien once wrote that, when asked if anyone alive during the time of the war could have faced Sauron on equal footing, then it would have been Gandalf. Yet it is true at the same time that Sauron has a massive army, a host of underlings at his disposal, and that is really without saying that much about the likes of the Nazgul. By force alone, Gandalf could not defeat Sauron, but Tolkien has hinted at the characters that were involved in the war. Only Gandalf among them would be able to take on Sauron. Sauron had more than just immense physical power, but as a being who existed from the dawn of time and heard the music of the Ainur himself, he and Gandalf were essentially of the same order of beings, and even attended, if you wish, choir together in their youth. But besides that great power, Sauron had the inhuman and immensely strong fortress of Barad-dûr to help back him up. One thing to keep in mind is that the wizards were not of heroic design, never intended to be the characters like Tolkas or Eonwe. They were Maiar, but clothed in mortal flesh, and in the case of the 5 Istari, they had the bodies of old and feeble men, which did much to dampen the full powers possessed of the beings which would be named Gandalf or Mithrandir amongst others in Middle-earth. There was, though, a lot for Sauron to fear too. Sauron believed that Aragorn had come into possession of the ring. Why else would he be marching on Mordor? He knew that the ring had been found, and he knew that Isildur's heir could use it against him. He also knew that the ring had been carried by a halfling after learning this from the Witch King after Weathertop. As Gandalf says after Pippin had looked into the Palantir,
"There remains a short while of doubt which we must use. The enemy, it is clear, thought that the stone was in Orthanc. Why should he not? And that therefore the hobbit was captive there, driven to look in the glass for his torment by Saruman. That dark mind will be filled now with the voice and face of the hobbit and with expectation. It may take some time before he learns his error. We must snatch that time."
Sauron believed that Saruman had captured the ring-bearer and was forcing him to look into the stone to interrogate him. So, Sauron believed that Saruman had the One Ring, and this is as he orders Pippin to tell Saruman not to use it, and that he would have it sent for immediately. Then, the next day, Aragorn looks into that same seeing stone.
"Nay, my friends, I am the lawful master of the stone, and I had both the right and the strength to use it, or so I judged. The right cannot be doubted. The strength was enough, barely." He drew a deep breath. It was a bitter struggle, and the weariness is slow to pass. I spoke no word to him, and in the end I wrenched the stone to my own will. That alone he will find hard to endure. And he beheld me. Yes, Master Gimli, he saw me, but in other guise than you see me here. If that will aid him, then I have done ill. But I do not think so. To know that I lived and walked the earth was a blow to his heart, I deem, for he knew it not till now. The eyes in Orthanc did not see through the armour of Theoden, but saw Sauron has not forgotten Isildur and the sword of Elendil. Now in the very hour of his great designs, the heir of Isildur and the sword are revealed, for I showed the blade reforged to him. He is not so mighty yet that he is above fear, nay, doubt ever gnaws him.
So, when Sauron learned of his error, as Gandalf says, he assumes that Aragorn had 1. Destroyed Isengard, 2. Defeated Saruman, 3. Taken the Palantir, and 4. Most importantly, had therefore also taken the One Ring. Meaning, Sauron now believed Aragorn had the ring in his possession, as also, when Aragorn defeats Sauron's southern armies, Legolas says,
In that hour I looked on Aragorn and thought how great and terrible a lord he might have become in the strength of his will, had he taken the ring for himself. Not for naught does Mordor fear him, but nobler is his spirit than the understanding of Sauron, for is he not of the children of Luthien?
Sauron believed that Aragorn would use the ring, and that this is how he defeated his armies at Pelagia, rather than the use of the army of the dead under the oath of Isildur. That is something that perhaps Sauron could never have predicted. He feared Aragorn to a greater degree than most could imagine, so much so that Sauron sent every single soldier to the Black Gate when Aragorn marched upon it. A mark of his arrogance can be seen in how open the gates of the cracks of Doom were though. No one stood guard. This is not just an oversight, this is a pathological denial of truth, further demonstrating Sauron's inability to empathise with anyone, which gives us all of the characterization needed. He is selfish, he is self-obsessed, and unable to fathom anyone else being less proud and greedy than the men that he held so easily under his sway. In a way, he was right after all. When it came to do the deed, Frodo refused, and had he been alone at this time, much of previous events could have happened again. History might well have repeated itself, with Frodo potentially retiring to the Misty Mountains for a nice diet of fish and riddle competitions with any passers-by.
The dark power was deep in thought, and the eye turned inward, pondering tidings of doubt and danger. A bright sword and a stern and kingly face it saw, and for a while it gave little thought to other things, and all its great stronghold, gate on gate and tower on tower, was wrapped in a brooding gloom.
Sauron believed that Aragorn had the ring, and he would use it to destroy him. It is also important to note that the wizards were not sent by the Valar, as we said, to be like Tolkas or Eonwe, Hercules-like heroes who are of great mind and physique. As the Istari, they are clothed in mortal forms, which take on the vulnerabilities which mortality confers, and thus vulnerable. They were not sent to do battle with Sauron on the field, but to act indirectly against Sauron, to aid and inspire those who would resist Sauron and his attempt to impose his will on Middle-earth. The reason their specific mission is important is that while Gandalf and Sauron are of the same order, of the Maiar, Gandalf, like Saruman, was greatly weakened by taking on the form specific to their mission. They were forbidden to reveal themselves at the fullness of their power. They would not, and could not, do so. A possibility for Gandalf's victory can be found by looking at what Sauron lacks entirely, those relationships of genuine companionship and friendship. Very few orcs would give their life to protect Sauron, and many, if not most, hated and feared the master that they served. The soldiers of Sauron serve in his armies out of fear and lack of choice. Now, compare this to an army full of people who act with purpose, mindfulness, and bravery in the full knowledge of the consequences of failure. A force comprised of 100 highly motivated and dedicated soldiers taking the field of battle against many times that number are always going to hold an advantage as long as their foe remains internally divided, forced into fighting, acting out of fear, and with little to no difference between what life is like as an orc in a world where Sauron is trying to rule the world, or in a world where he has covered the lands in a second darkness. Doubtful that Sauron's aggression would cease with the whole of Middle-earth beneath his boot, and even more doubtful still that he would treat his soldiers and warriors better, or put a government together that advocates on behalf of orcs and orc rights. This is why we see huge upsets historically. The extent of a character's motivation in a fight is as important as the size of the fight in the character, though their form is limited. As we mentioned, we get to see all of Gandalf's available strength put to work when fending off the Nazgul and against the Balrog in the depths of Moria, though it is not a certainty Gandalf would have won the fight if not for the fall, and really, since they both died, the best we can actually do is call it a draw. All of that power would not defeat Sauron, who is much, much mightier than a Balrog. To put an even finer point on it is to look at the same matchup after Gandalf's resurrection. Gandalf is sent back to Middle-earth with upgrades, his skill tree has grown, and he is a much more powerful being. Even in that form though, he is still no match to Sauron. A potential game changer in this matter would be whether or not Gandalf could defeat Sauron if wearing the latter's ring, and then using it against him in the shiniest irony in all of Middle-earth. But we know Gandalf would not take the ring.
"No," said Gandalf, "that is not the road that you must take. I have spoken words of hope, but only hope. Hope is not victory. War is upon us and all our friends, a war in which only the use of the ring could give us surety of victory. It fills me with great sorrow and great fear, for much shall be destroyed and all may be lost. I am Gandalf, Gandalf the White, but black is mightier still."
Here, by certainty, Gandalf means only the certainty which comes through working in concert with the One Ring, a direct confrontation with Sauron and a clash between armies. But this is still doubtful. The idea of a dark Gandalf, Gandalf the Black, has an unintended consequence of making him less supportive of hope and more insistent on obedience. Though this dark Gandalf would be perhaps far more powerful and give him a chance at defeating Sauron, with it more realistically ending in stalemate due to, first of all, Gandalf's renewed strength, but secondly, the ring's own loyalty to its creator. Now, Gandalf himself said that Sauron feared Aragorn, but did he really? Yes, the figure of Aragorn is connected to Sauron's psychological and emotional fear of Andúril. The fear is that of a commanding figure. Sauron feared what Aragorn might do with the right, yet his defect of character leads to bad decision making on Sauron's behalf. He worried that Aragorn would use the ring and so dominate his servants and destroy Sauron through military action, or by the magic of the ring. This was one of the ring's weaknesses, and an important one, and Sauron's fear of Aragorn was set in stone once he had come to an opinion, and if domination was not the endgame or the pursuit of further power and its purposes, it is possible that Sauron would be unable to comprehend using the ring in such a way. There was plenty for Sauron to fear, and many powerful foes rallied against him. His greatest fear was that some powerful greater spirit would do to him what had been done to Morgoth, exploit his absence to acquire all his powers and cast him down with the help of the ring. His great pride and obsession would not let him believe someone would actually destroy the ring. This was unfathomable. No, they would not use it against him, as Boromir would have tried doing. That was its greatest deception, the promise of aid with the guarantee of pain. It's easy to see how so many fell into such a trap, but it is nice to know that even the devil does look for monsters under his bed sometimes. This is why he feared Aragorn, the heir to the thrones of the reunited kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor. He would be a powerful buffer against his expanded power for years to come, and that he could not suffer to be. In the end, his fears were as all-consuming as the fear he conferred on everyone else in Middle-earth, and as such, well deserved. So there we have it, a look at Sauron's greatest fears during the Third Age and the War of the Ring. This was not Sauron's first attempt at war and domination, so he had experience with losses before, and from those he gained different feelings. He became worried about another alliance between elves and men in a relationship he really believed to be non-existent. He feared his Maya brothers gaining control of his weapons to try and stand toe-to-toe with him. But most of all, he feared those with the ability to rally, inspire hope, and reunite the kingdoms that were once his downfall. When it comes down to it, discussing whom he feared most between Gandalf and Aragorn, it may be surprising to see that by the time of his downfall, it was in fact the man he feared more than the wizard. This heir to Isildur caused a reliving of the War of the Last Alliance, a defeat he would never have forgotten. And how this man showed that no matter the darkness, no matter the odds, he had the ability to rally those to his cause and lift them up beyond anything he could dream of doing to his own soldiers. Could any of these have defeated him one-on-one? No. But if they could defeat his army, his way of dominating the world, the pawns on his chessboard, then he could never turn Middle-earth into the place he had dreamed and desired of for all those countless thousands of years of his existence. The order and way of life he so yearned for would become impossible. It is actually a quote from the movies, not Tolkien himself, that I feel is a great way to end this, as it shows. Man, elf, dwarf, wizard, or hobbit. Sauron would have been right to have held some degree of fear for them all.
Even the smallest person can change the course of the future.
With that, now it is time for my question of the day, which is, who do you believe Sauron should have really feared the most? Was Gandalf, even without his fully unlocked power, Sauron's biggest rival? Or was the leader of men Aragorn his true greatest threat? Or perhaps there is a different one out there, someone like Galadriel who should really top this pile? Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section below. And now to shout out all of our patrons. You guys are the ones letting us be able to make our short film in the background of all things here, and I cannot thank you all enough. Firstly, we have our Divine Power tier members of Kevin and Abram. You are both awesome. And a big thanks to our Fire Demon tier members of Nashith, Denversteel, and Gregory. You are amazing people. And as well, I cannot forget the Wizard Staff tier members of John, Andrew, and Jennifer. Every single one of you is a true legend of the Bro Hero. Finally, if you have managed to reach the very end of this video with me today and you are enjoying what you see on this channel, then please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon too, with all notifications ticked, so that you can be notified when every future video goes up. And of course, thank you again to NordVPN for sponsoring this video today. Remember to check out our exclusive deal in the description or comment section below. And so, thank you for spending just some of your time with me today, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.